Welcome back to the Applied Leadership Podcast. My name is Brandon Young. As always, I'm joined by my good friend and business partner, Blaine Smith, where we take some time to wrestle with one question, and we have no script in the process, and just want to be out there on the trail and chopping up some things that we're thinking about and that others are thinking about as they send questions into us by sending a note to contact@appliedleadershippartners.com. And today, we've got something that we're going to wrestle with that's been hot on our minds, and it's something around how do you know when it's the right time to stop doing something, to move off of a project, an initiative, an intention, a goal. When do you know when it's the right time to change
Quit.
course, to
You're not going
quit?
to say the word
I'm
quit.
not
I'll
going to
say it.
say it. I can't
We're
say it.
talking about quitting today, people. Let's
Oh my
go.
God. I can't, I don't even know how to say it. It's not, I just don't even, I don't want to say it. When's the right time to quit? That's the question. How do we know? When is the right time to stop doing something we're doing? That's the question.
Can I say it depends?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to start with that.
I think it's. I think it depends. Maybe we could. Gosh, this is just coming to me now, so I'm thinking out loud. Maybe one way we could try to attack this is the answer is clearly it depends. Maybe we can have a quick discussion on what it depends on. Maybe we can get some of those categories of things out there. I can get us started.
Oh boy.
Uh, is the activity inherently good for you or bad for you? Like, is there a clear line? Because if you're smoking, I would say the best time to quit is now. And to say, well, I'll wait until after the stressful period, or I'll wait until after I do this other thing, like probably the answer is now. If there's something that's harming you or harming those around you, probably if it's obvious, you want to quit sooner than later. But like, what about the things that are less obvious? Like
Yeah.
most coins have two sides last time I checked, right? And so what if you're grinding yourself to pieces working on a project or a company that you think has a ton of value or impact? Well, it may not be good for you in some senses, but maybe it's good for you in others, or maybe it's good for, a greater population of people. So I think that's one thing to consider is, you know, is it good or is it good for you? Um, Maybe another category is like, how long have you been at it? And do you have any good feedback as to whether it's working or not?
Oh, I
Like,
like
can
that.
you tell whether or not you're on the right path? That might be another category. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'll just put those two on the table.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I'll take the last one. Like, it's worth asking yourself, how long have you been at it, comma, in earnest?
yeah, there you go.
Like, what work have you actually done in the pursuit of this aim that seems to be just out of grasp for you, where frustration is just compounding and compounding? I think that's worth noting. It's like you can have people. It's not uncommon for someone to say something like, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or
Oh yeah.
I feel like this is this is a activity or a mission that I feel that God is calling me to. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, well, if you feel like you're supposed to be doing something, or you feel called to do something, or however, whatever forces are driving that inspiration inside of you, the next natural question is, what are you doing to, in earnest, effort towards that calling, that vision, that whatever it is?
Yeah, we were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago with some folks we were working with, and about, do you really have good data on the effort? Meaning, have you tried this in earnest, as you said? Because if you're kind of moving towards something, going after something, trying something out, working on something, and you're not doing it wholeheartedly, you don't really know whether you're good at it, whether it's going to work or not, because you haven't really put a full effort into it. And if you're going at something half-heartedly, look, no judgment. I do lots of things in my life half-heartedly, right? I
Yes.
do a lot of things, and only some of them I can really do with my whole heart. But um, I have to be pretty careful about assessing the value of or the success of those types of things, because I know in, deep down, I didn't really give that a full go. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say, like, that's not a good idea, or that's not a worthwhile endeavor, or I'm never going to be good at this, because, I know I didn't really go after it in earnest. So I think that's a big aspect to think about. Maybe the layer below that is, if I am, why? And if I haven't done this wholeheartedly, why? Because that might lead you to some other indications as to whether or not this is something you want to continue pursuing. Because oftentimes it might be a good thing, and you might even be able to be good at it, but something's holding you back from really doing it. And if that's just, you need to really commit to it, fine. But maybe this isn't what you really want to be doing. Maybe this doesn't feel like a good fit for you. Maybe it's misaligned with your values in some way or something like that. So I think examining why you may or may not be putting an earnest or a wholehearted effort into it is worth examining as well.
Yeah, I think so. And you made me think about a term as I was listening called quiet quitting, right? Like you may not be overtly quitting, but if you're not doing the actual work, if you're just kind of doing the moves and not the activities that lead to success, you kind of already are quitting. So maybe that's an indication,
Mm-hmm.
the core question is, how do you know when to quit? I don't know. Maybe if you're already quiet quitting, maybe if you're just
Yeah.
kind of mailing it in every day and, take a look at yourself and ask yourself, how long have I been doing that? How long have I been mailing it in? And,
Yeah.
is there something, did I lose focus here? And I guess that's where my thinking is really headed on this is what about the things that we're doing, and we're doing them in earnest, and yet and we know why we're doing it, right? Like the purpose is apparent. So
Mm-hmm.
simple example, right now I'm doing a high protein diet, thanks to you. So thanks a lot. I'm just kidding. Totally voluntary on
You're
my part.
cursing me every night at 8 p.m. Like, where am I going to get 35
How
more
am I
grams
gonna
of
get
protein?
35? Jeez, but Blaine Smith. Anyways, no, but I know why I'm doing a bit of a diet switch up, right? I'm 46 years old. My body's changing. I have felt a lot of soreness. I felt flat in my workouts. All of this actually relates to the entire thing, right? I feel flat in my workouts. My energy is not where I want it to be. Um, you know, well, do I stop working out 6 times a week? No, I'm not going to stop working out 6 times a week. Why? Because it's good for me. And because it's good for my head, it's good for my soul, it's good for my body, it's good for all of the things, because I want to live a rich life long, into my years. And so I know why I'm doing it. I know why I'm trying something different. And yet it's like, geez, like this is difficult. It becomes difficult. And the difficulty is, I mean, I live a pretty disciplined life by all accounts. You could see anything that I've done in life, and I can see that I know how to discipline my way through things. And yet there are things that happen in the midst of it where I can say for myself, I either let me just make this very simple. A practice, I can discipline my way into a practice so firmly that it just becomes rote, and I am doing the moves, but I'm not fully where my feet are. My head's not engaged with it. It becomes very challenging. For example, I'm 7 months into a word study of the Hebrew word, for steadfast. Now I can get up every morning, like I've done every morning thus far this year, and continue to look into that. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm just kind of like, yep, there it is again. There's another word. And it becomes very rote. And so that's something that's worth kind of noting and that I'm thinking about right now, is that we can still keep doing it, but it's like, what richness am I getting out of this right now? And do I need to change something about the way that I'm going about it? As do I need to inject a little bit of that novelty, that we've talked about before, into the process, because it's getting stale? And how do I kind of unbundle that from, is this a question of quitting, or is it a question of pivoting, adjusting? Because it's easy to get rote, it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to do all
Sure.
those things, even while you're in the midst of doing something that you know why you're doing it and you know why it matters.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I want to jump in on. One is we should consider and we should ask ourselves, is it just the way we're doing it that feels uncomfortable or boring or stale right now? And maybe we need to keep generally doing the same thing, but find a fresh look at it. Maybe we need a break. Maybe we need some kind of renewal or some rejuvenation in this process. Maybe we need a new perspective on it. So that could be really helpful too. So I would, before I were to quit anything that I've deemed to be important or I set out to do because I thought about it and I said this is something that matters to me. Uh, I would stop and say, hey, could I just do this a bit differently? Do I just need a quick break? Is there another way to look at this and maybe refresh it a little bit? So I think that's worth considering. The other thing that might be at play here is just thinking about what are we trying to get out of this? Like just going back and remembering what the purpose of the exercise or the process or the project was in the first place. Because it does happen sometimes that an endeavor reaches the extent of its usefulness before what you thought the end was going to be. So there are a lot of books I've picked up. I've read the first 20, 30, 60 pages and I've said, I think I got it. I'm not going to
Right.
spend 200 more pages on this book. And no offense to the author, it's just life's about trade-offs and time is unlimited or is limited. So maybe I kind of quit reading that book because I feel like it's reached the extent of its usefulness for me. A area where guys like you and I may struggle in this, or and gals too, for that matter, is with sort of where our identity it gets overlaid on this. So if I've decided that I'm the kind of person that finishes what I start,
Mm.
period,
Yep.
I may have a difficult time putting down a book that I don't need to spend any more time on. Or worse, I could sign up for a marathon, start my training program, realize I'm injured, 3 or 4 weeks before the race.
Yep.
And I have to decide who I am in this moment. Because if I've already decided I'm the kind of person that doesn't quit, I can tough out anything. I'll continue running on that stress fracture in my foot. I'll hobble my way through the marathon and I'll probably hurt myself worse.
Right.
For me personally, what I probably should get out of that experience is the humility and the restraint of withdrawing from the marathon, taking the pill and saying, I'm not a bad person because I withdrew from a race, and growing in a way that's going to allow my body to heal and my mind to reframe these kinds of things a little bit so I can be a mature person moving forward. That would be very hard for me to do. I'm not saying there's not another person out there that the best thing for them to do would be to suck it up and run on that busted foot and complete the marathon. If that's a
Sure.
person who's never completed anything in their life and they need badly to prove to themselves that they could do this,
You
hey,
might
maybe the
need
right
that
answer for
broken
you.
foot.
Yeah, maybe that is. So it's a personal decision. I don't think there's any black and white. And I think we have to be very careful about both understanding what it is we're trying to achieve with this and what part of our identity we may have assigned to this. And we can then make an informed decision once we've thought through that. But if we haven't taken the time to step back and consider it, then I think we're just going to default to whatever mode we were born in or we were conditioned to be in.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I'm just thinking like, what what have I ever quit on in my life? Like what's been something that I've ever quit on? I don't know. I
Come
mean,
down the ladder a little, if I had to guess. So, like, right, like you didn't quit Ranger School, you didn't quit
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
missions, the big things. You didn't quit your Master's of Divinity program that was 3.5 years. So there are these big things that are obvious to point at that you didn't quit. I mean, I'll stay in my circle here. If I were to look a little more closely to my day to day life, I could find lots of examples of things I quit. So like, maybe not West Point or Ranger School or some of these things, but like I've done, 30-day no alcohol challenges that I've quit 20 days in. I've done, paleo eating things or whatever, where I've like said, geez, I'm not doing this right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, this is
Um,
dumb. I don't want to do this. Like,
yeah, I mean, even things that I would probably consider in my wheelhouse that I don't ever quit. There have been workouts where I've been out in the garage and sweating my butt off, and I'll tweak something, or I realize I programmed this way too aggressively. And I'm like, I'm doing 4 rounds instead of 5 rounds. Like, it depends on how you skin it, but
I no, I
I could come up with
appreciate.
hundreds of
Yeah,
examples.
yeah, no, I appreciate that because those are good examples, and it's interesting that you even. I think you've introduced a really important fold into this because when I think of quitting, I'm immediately thinking of Masters of Divinity, Ranger School, Ranger Regiment, all these kind of things that are just like the high water kind of mark kind of things that I've done in my life. But the truth is that there are many things that are quite a bit smaller. You mentioned the alcohol, for example. I went 30 days or 35 days without drinking any alcohol, and to be honest with you, at the end of it, I was just kind of thinking like, well, I don't really know. I don't really know what I'm getting out of this right now. And I'm not really sure why I'm doing this. I'm not even really sure what the objective is. I mean, I guess the reason why I did it is because I wanted to see if my body would feel different and better, and it didn't.
It missed
So,
beer. Beer
yeah.
is great.
And as it turned out, I just wanted to have a glass of wine with my wife at Carboy, our favorite winery, 20 minutes away. And I just wanted to do that. But I still felt a little bit like odd about it. Like, am I quitting? Is this something that I need to, stop doing? Um, again, and I think I've even mentioned it on this podcast before. Like, I have an intention that I operate by. I love ice cream. I love ice cream. I think about ice cream. I want ice cream as many times as I could possibly get it. When I go on vacation in Italy, I'm having gelato twice a day. That's me and ice cream. Okay. It's a love affair. I, my limit on ice cream is that I have it once a week and I have it on Sundays. And it's the last thing that I consume in a week. I like to watch a movie or a show or something and just sit there. I'm not giving up on that. Now, do I want ice cream more? Yes. But do I get more out of it when I get my one bowl of ice cream a week and enjoy it, on the couch and, watching a TV program? So, like, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but the point though, I think, is that you're coming back to the why. And I think that the why can get lost in the midst of what we're doing when we are routinely doing anything. Call it prayer, call it reading, call it journaling. It's easy to do the moves without actually like really deepening into the soil of the practice that you're trying to get after. And I really like how you pointed out, maybe it's just about altering the way we're doing it. Maybe it's about taking a slight break. Maybe it's about finding novelty in the midst of routine.
Sure, sure. Let's think about this a little bit in a work context, because I bet a lot of people are thinking about regularly, should we kill this project? When do I have to let go of this employee that seems to be underperforming? Should I quit my job? Should I close my business? I mean, there are some big questions that people are wrestling with. Um, and I wonder how we might, evaluate that, because the decision itself is a personal one. And I'm not here to tell anybody whether they should or should not stay in their job, whether they should or should not close their business. That is not my role. But I wonder if we can come up with a little bit of an approach to these kinds of big sort of capital Q quitting events that haunt us, because those are the ones that we remember. And I think those are the ones that we don't want to have on the scoreboard as like, I quit. But like, let's think about that a little bit. I mean, if you, let's just say you're in a job, you joined a business, you're in a job, you've been at it a while, you're having these thoughts for whatever array of reasons. How might you evaluate whether or not we should just move on? Like, it's just not going to work, or it's just not serving you, and there's something else you should be doing. Like, that's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, it's a really hard decision to make. I mean, starting with the purpose, what it intends to achieve in the first place, I think is important. But I don't want to just give kind of a canned answer as it regards to that. Like, you could just say, oh, we'll just start with why. And if it's serving the purpose, then keep doing it. I'm sorry, but that's a little too, that's a
I want to
little,
jump in here real quick because I have a veteran angle on this that I think we have to state before I forget it. Is that you do need to be very thoughtful about the purpose of your job and what it is you hope it brings to your life. And I think where a lot of our contemporaries have struggled in leaving the military is that they have really high expectations for what this job is going to do for them. And the reality is it's just not going to give you everything that your old job gave you, at least not most likely. It's a very high bar. And so sometimes recalibrating your expectations for things can be pretty important, or just at least checking in and making sure that you have reasonable expectations on what it is this is supposed to be,
mhm.
providing for you.
I think I like that. I think it's important that we stated that, especially for many of our veteran contemporaries. But just to bring it back down into a work context, whether you're a program manager working on something, if you're a project manager, if you're a leader of any given thing, and you're endeavoring towards that goal that you have set out for yourself. I think, as you said before, uh, there are different ways that we can change how we're doing it to get to where we're trying to go. That might be one question. I think another question, which brings us back to what the conversation we're having with one of our um, clients earlier in the week is, okay, then maybe the next thing is, how are we aggregating data? What are our feedback loops to actually look at to see whether or not this is actually achieving the aim, or if this is actually generating value for the organization, generating value for those that we serve. I think that can be a really tough uh, thing to get into, because you really don't know. And I think that in so with just the digital environment that we're in right now, and I think we're all very aware on the massive amounts of measurement methodologies that are out there. I mean, you could go into your social media and see how many people are connected to you and how many people looked at something, I guess, and did they like it? Did they not like it? I don't know. You can look at output metrics and KPIs within your business, and they're just numbers. But how you evaluate those numbers, I think, really becomes quite important. Here's a simple example that is very, close to home for our business. How many people are downloading and listening to these podcasts? We can look at those numbers, and if we look at those numbers, is it encouraging or discouraging? I would have to say that more often than not, I look at it and I say, like, I'm not really sure many people are like really listening to this. And if it's something that we really want to continue to invest in, because I'm not sure if people are really getting anything out of this. And then it happens quite frequently. Someone out of nowhere, whether it's we're on a client visit, we may be on site, or we may be on a call with somebody, or maybe even receive a note, but somebody says invariably, oh, I really appreciated that podcast episode you guys were talking about when you fill in the blank. And that to me is always like, oh, wow, like that's really interesting. I didn't know that was going on out there. Like, maybe there are so many things that are happening that you just don't know. And so it's worth noting, what are your feedback loops, and what are some novel ways that you can gain feedback that are a little bit further than just the numbers that kind of aggregate on a screen, or that just aggregate through your standard KPI measurement platform.
Yeah, this is really important because this is true across, I think, most aspects of life. One, the value of being clear on what it is you're trying to achieve with something so that you can evaluate against it. Because the way other people evaluate the success of a podcast is very different than the way that you and I might. We don't have sponsors, we're not getting paid per download. Like, so we wouldn't want to evaluate our podcast the same way a podcast that was trying to achieve those aims would. For us, if 2 or 3 people a year listen to this podcast, are interested in it, contact us, become clients, we have far exceeded what we could hope for. And so for us, that's marketing stuff, whether it's sharing on social media, we're just using different measures of success. Again, not right or wrong, but we need to remember that we don't need 50,000 people to like a post we make on LinkedIn. We need two or three of the right people to connect with it, have it resonate with them, and have them get in touch with us. But it's hard because the world has these sort of general metrics for how we measure things. How tall are you? How strong are you? How much money do you have? What kind of car do you drive? There are all these ways what title do you have at work? What size office do you have? All of that stuff matters to some extent, but if we're not careful, we just onboard what's around us and accept it. And we have an opportunity to be a little bit more thoughtful and discerning in how we're measuring the success of something. And it can be true in your business as well. Like, let's evaluate whether this project is getting what we hoped it would get for us. If it isn't, okay, maybe we have to make a hard decision and change it or kill it. But are we aware of those hidden benefits, those positive externalities, if you will, the compounding effect of having a voice in the space and things along those lines? So, yeah, I think being thoughtful in whether or not it's achieving its aims is important. Being thoughtful in whether or not those were the right aims in the first place is really important, because I think you could wake up one day in a company, in a job, in a project, in any aspect of your life and just say, I've not thought very hard about what the goal of all of this was, because I just sort of took it at face value and charged ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't even mean you need to change course. But even if you stay on the same course, you'll do it with a lot more vigor, I think, and a lot more success if you're clear as to what it is you're really trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because we tend to lionize the people who stick with it for long periods of time, whoever that is, whether it's like a Bill Gates, a Steve Jobs, all these people in the business sector that get lionized for just kind of like sticking with their vision, and like it's the vision that really matters, and I'm just going to keep pushing and all these things. And I just feel fairly convinced that they probably go through this kind of stuff as well. They probably have their own doubts. They probably hit periods of discouragement as well. And that's really an important part of this is where can you find encouragement in the midst of all of your efforting? I think it's important to stay as encouraged as possible, even when you're hitting these rough patches. And like I'm totally on. Like, I just went and saw Metallica for the first time in years. You and I saw them actually at the Concert for Valor in DC. I don't even know what year that was.
2016, I think.
16 maybe, but they only played a couple songs. I mean, the upshot is I saw them in 1994. I just saw them again 2 nights ago. These masters of their craft. And not just them, but Pantera, masters of their craft. Suicidal Tendencies, masters of their craft. These people have been doing this for decades. And I was kind of thinking a lot about this and scratching my head about it. And I went back and started looking at some different documentaries and whatnot. I mean, if you really want to know about like Metallica, for example, is probably one of the most successful rock and roll bands ever. I mean, these people are like printing cash, in what they're doing. They are so effective at what they're doing. Go back and watch what is that? Some Kind of Monster. These guys imploded. in 2001 or 2, which it's cracking me up to go. It's not cracking me up. I'm actually going back and watching it. I had some other things going on at the time, that pesky war. So I wasn't tracking what was going on with Metallica, at that point in time. But I think it's worth noting that you take a look at some of these people that get lionized for their mastery of things. Look, they hit the skids too, just like everybody else. They're hitting a wall as well. They're not superhuman in this regard.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing up this idea of mastery and the long timeline, because I think maybe to this point in the conversation, I've been a almost like a little bit pro quitting, or at least pro examination, and like getting right with yourself about quitting certain things. But I also believe very deeply that ordinary people doing relatively ordinary things can achieve extraordinary results by sticking with it for a long period of time. And so that's another thing I just want to make sure that I bring in from my perspective is, and you said the word encouragement, which I think is a great one. The feedback loop is just never as tight as you'd like it to be. You never get as good information back. It takes longer to get where you're trying to go than you would think. And it can be very, very hard and discouraging at times when you're just kind of plodding along, doing all the right things, and you're just still not seeing the
Yes.
results. And
Yes.
so I would say in this case, if you know that what you're going for matters and you truly care about it and you believe you're doing the right things along the way and you're just not getting there as fast as you would like, or you've had some setbacks along the way, then I think you definitely want to consider sticking with it, because I don't care whether you're talking about fitness, writing a book, growing a business, you name it. It's just hard. These things, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to have bumps along the way, and sticking with it, I think, is absolutely critical. And so if you're not harming yourself, if you haven't hitched too much of your identity to it, if it's not clearly the wrong path, there is definitely huge power in sticking with things, particularly if they don't cost you a ton. This is another one I've been trying to think a lot about. Like, there are small practices that really compound over time that don't cost a lot of time or money or energy necessarily. They're just sort of pesky or boring, things like stretching and, taking supplements, stuff along those lines.
Stretching.
I
God.
despise these things because I don't get the feedback. But I know if I just had a really good stretching and mobility routine and I did it every day or 5 days a week for 4, 6, 9 months, it would transform the way I feel and move. And I won't do it because I have a hard time sticking with it, because I do it for a few days and I don't see results. Whereas if I nuke myself with a workout, I can feel it immediately. And I'm like, I did something. There's soreness and that kind of thing. So yeah, I want to say, like, if you feel like you're on the right path and it's something that matters, like, settle in and stick with it, especially if it's something that's not like costing you a ton. You don't have to transform your whole life in order to do it.
Well, and find small wins, I think, is what you're also
Yeah.
saying. Find small wins and also invite somebody else into the circle to ask for support and encouragement. I think that's so important. I have a really good friend of mine. He's in the process of looking at purchasing a house, and it was actually quite cool because he's looking for a house. He's got a couple different areas where he's looking. He put an offer in on a house over the weekend and sat down next to me at a barbecue and was just like, "Hey, I'm like super. I'm pretty anxious about this right now. Can you just like give me a sec? Like, do you think I'm doing the right thing? Can you like, because I feel like I'm like, yeah, let's take a couple minutes and just look at it together. But like, I just thought that was such a cool modeling of asking for another person's perspective for a little bit of support and a little bit of encouragement. You know, I think that's really important in this because
Oh, yeah.
I
Go
think
ahead.
part of what gets us off course is that we don't have that. And you're just so in your head because it's like, well, this is the thing that I'm doing. I'm the one that's looking at a new house. I'm the one that's eating a high protein diet. I'm the one that's doing my stretching routine. But we
You
don't
need
live
that
isolated.
perspective.
Yes,
Yeah, you
yes,
need that perspective on reality. I think the home buying process, it can be long and very frustrating and very discouraging. And there are times when you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And we need to be careful about what signs and signals we take from the universe and make meaning out of, because
yes,
what could feel like, hey, that's two bad things in a row that happened. Maybe those are signs I shouldn't be on this path. Well, maybe. Or maybe that's just two things that happen to basically everybody as they're going down that path, and you can accept them as normal and frustrating parts of the process and just kind of move along. And I think home buying is a great example, because people that are first time home buyers, if you've ever sold a home to a first time home buyer, woof,
ugh,
because like everything's a big deal. Any little thing that comes back on the inspection, needs to be re-inspected. And like, it's because you haven't done it before and you don't have a good sense of what kind of the normal process is. And so you might see little flags that pop up as like totally discouraging or alarming when, if you have a good realtor, they can talk you through it and kind of say like, hey, yeah, like let's look at this, but this is not abnormal at all. This happens in like 70% of cases, et cetera. So maybe that's the last thing I'll say on my end is like make sure that you have a reasonable understanding of the process. And as you've recommended, Brandon, getting some external help to sort of share in that perspective or shed a little light on the reality can be really, really helpful because it's easy to get discouraged when you're in a silo and everybody on Instagram is getting 200 grams of protein a day. No
Oh, for
problem. Look how
God's
easy it
sakes.
is.
Oh my
you
God.
know?
Yeah. So freaking easy. And you're like, whatever, dude. You know?
Yeah, we
Uh
all have the same 24 hours a day, right, Brandon?
oh my gosh. I don't even want to hear it. This is actually really interesting. I almost feel like we're kind of like the conversation is kind of starting to trend into deeper waters here. So we might need to like keep the theme, but take this into our next episode. We might need to do that because I feel like there's more to talk about here.
Okay, let's do it. Let's wrap this up and try to stay true to our kind of 30-minute window. But I think we can talk next time maybe it's about encouragement, maybe it's about accountability, maybe
I
it's
like
about
it.
doing things together. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up this time and then check us out the next time over. Wow, what a great lead we're doing here. Gosh,
You're
who
welcome.
knew? Yeah. Hit us up with any questions at contact@appliedleadershippartners.com, and we will see you on the next episode where we're going to talk a little bit more about encouragement, staying encouraged, especially while we're doing things that are potentially quite difficult. And you're just going to have to pick it up on the next time. See you guys next go.